Power on.
Earth, 2018. The alliance between governments and tech giants has led to the rise of the surveillance society, distraction technology, the attention wars, and the erosion of your mind. But one show stands against this insidious system. Hosted by the podcast champion, the man of tomorrow, the Golden Stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He and his co-hosts form the intellectual resistance. It's time for Sovryn Tech.
You're dressing all in black, from your front to your back, and all your evil ways, they seem to go on for days, and as a matter of fact, you got white smashing up, burning down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain. Alright. You've been knocking down these doors, you've been filling up this room. You run around the place like your name was Dr. Doom. You're a killer of culture, a vulture of style, and it won't be that long before you end up on trial. You're gonna smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain.
Woo! The host that the sexiest woman alive calls the sexiest man alive, baby. It is the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, the thriller that is Savzilla, baby, coming off a weekend so hot that, oh boy, trying to cool down here. Actually, I got to tell you, so funny thing about the Golden Stallion. Let me let you in on a little something, right? I am a mutant. And I don't say that to be cute. I quite mean that I am a mutant. I've been called that by medical professionals. Thank you. And it's not an insult. And I assure you there's a point to this story. But ever since I was a young lad, I learned through a very unfortunate way of finding it out. Or at least I found it unfortunate. I found out that I have a significantly lower body temperature than the rest of my species, than the rest of humanity. I have an average body temperature of 94.6 degrees Fahrenheit. You got it. I am like 4 degrees lower in temperature than the bulk, like I said, of my species. And this has inadvertently, what I've learned, or what's theorized about me, by talking to some dear friends and medical professionals, that this actually keeps me from something I've rarely experienced in my life, that is being sick. It almost never happens. I mean, to even for it to be once a year would be unheard of. It generally just doesn't happen. And the argument kind of goes is that bacteria or whatever else that would, get me sick can't thrive inside of my body at that lower temperature. So it does, I don't get sick as often. Anyway, that's effectively the theory. Okay. That said, I don't know if I ate something weird this weekend or what the hell happened, or, maybe because I was a little off of my usual, I have admittedly, so longtime Sovryn Tech listeners are aware of this. And of course, if you are a Sovryn Tech patron at sovereigntech.com, where you get access to thousands of hours of exclusive audio content, new content every week, baby. Woo, how could you not want to do that? You know that I am very serious about my fitness. I work out regularly, weightlifting. I am, for all intents and purposes, a bodybuilder. I might not look like Arnold yet, but I'm on the way, okay? My 19-inch arms are doing all right. And in so doing, I have like a very specific and consistent diet that I usually eat. And I like to get off of it every once in a while, and maybe sometimes I just run a little too much off the track or something like that. Totally my own fault, completely my fault. And I got a little sick. And so yesterday, normally Sovereign Tech releases on a Sunday. Recently, it's been coming out often, like on a Monday morning or something like that. But the only reason it was late this week, coming out on a Monday instead of the Sunday, was because, I was I was hurling pretty good. So, but that's okay. The price we pay. I'm not complaining for a second. But just so you know as to why that happened, is it was one of the very rare instances where, I was not at 100%, physically. So you're getting this episode a little late, but fit as a fiddle and ready to go. And, something that actually probably wouldn't have helped me at all as far as what I experienced a little bit on Sunday. This really wouldn't help, even though they would advertise it as that it would, is actually going to be our opening story. And our opening story is a bit of a conversation and a review around a piece of technology, something that I don't think anyone, talk about something that's going to shock people, that I would ever wear one of these. And I think I might have just given it away. But I've been trying it. I'm going to explain to you why I've been trying it, because I guarantee you it's not for the reasons that most people bother to wear these things. But I have been wearing around my wrist a fitness tracker. Yep. You can check. In fact, call my dad. Hey, Dad, Satan, what's the temperature in hell right now? Freezing. Yeah, it's freezing in New Hampshire, too. That's all right. How you doing? Oh, man. Careful. That last pitchfork, you cooked them a little too evenly. Turn and flip. Turn and flip. Thanks, Dad. Lord Satan. Sorry. Satan. Dad. Anyway, sorry. It's just a little conversation there. Hail Satan. Sorry. Yeah, we're going to talk about Satan a little. No, we're not Satan. We're going to talk about Satanism a little bit later. And we are going to get into it. I wanted to get into it last week, but we are going to get into it. But anyway, so I just checked in with the family, and hell has frozen over. So, they've had to kind of shutter their windows a bit in that hot place. But regardless, I have been wearing a fitness tracker, specifically the Xiaomi Mi Band 3. And this is the latest version of the Mi Band, that's Mi Band from Xiaomi. And this device, this fitness tracker, has really, much like hell, caught like wildfire. And because it's really cheap. And I don't mean like that it's not constructed well or that it doesn't work well, but it's inexpensive. It averages somewhere around $30 usually. If you catch a deal on a certain day, maybe you can get it for $15. But compared to a lot of what like Fitbit and some of these other companies offer you, or like say the fucking Apple Watch, which, when you get into those ranges, you're talking anywhere from $70,000 to $10,000 if you want it in solid gold. And hey, if you're going to track your heart, you might as well do it with gold, right, baby? I mean, is that end stage capitalism or what? No, doctor, if you're going to put that needle in me, that thing better be 24 karat. Oh, wait, that's a little too soft. It better be 18 karat. And it better have a diamond bezel on it before you inject me with any morphine, whatever. Of course, they don't do that with the... Anyway, all right. So the Mi Band 3, my apologies. I'll stop talking off the microphone. The Mi Band 3. So yeah, it runs about $30, and that in and of itself lends it to being something where it's in the price point of being experimental. In fact, when I ordered it, I ended up getting it for about $15. So, that was a steal. Will there be a Mi Band 4? Well, considering the way that the Mi Band 2 and the Mi Band 3 have been selling like hotcakes, I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be a Mi Band 4, but that probably won't come out until the end of 2019. So the Mi Band 3, if after I talk about it, you are intrigued to get one, that's the one to get. Don't bother waiting around for the next model. It's probably not going to get announced for quite a few months. And when it does come out, it's only going to be $30. So who gives a fucking shit? But regardless, so the Mi Band 3 has not even a 1-inch screen on it. And it comes with just like a nice little, silicone, rubber bracelet, that molds pretty well around my wrist. And I have a fairly large wrist, and so if it can fit my wrist, it's a pretty good bet it's going to fit yours. And I can wear it all the time, even when I'm lifting weights. It's no problem. Admittedly, when I have worn some larger watches, like my favorites, that being the Casio G-Shocks, those don't always, your wrist starts to feel it that you're wearing something around it. As to where with the Mi Band 3, very lightweight, and you don't even notice it that you're wearing it. And it is waterproof, which was important for me. If it's not, then it can't possibly replace the watch that I would wear around my wrist, which I have a special relationship with watches. I literally can't find a picture or a time where I didn't wear a watch. My dad, and I don't mean Satan. Sorry. My dad, he was so, so crazy about time. I was always wearing a watch. I can't remember when I didn't wear a watch, so I can't go around. I don't feel good if I'm not wearing a watch. I'll tell you that. So anyway, this does tell time rather nicely. Has a kind of a vertical time display where right now it's saying it's 2042, which of course means it's 8:42, and it gives you the the day, Monday, and then the year and month, 12/17, of course, and it doesn't say doesn't give you the year of 2018. Sorry, not year and month and day. And then it's a touch screen, and so you can flip through, you can see the weather, which I'll tell you something about this. Again, I'm going to get into what I actually use this for. That's what I think is going to be interesting, and maybe it might convince you to get this sort of thing, because I don't think it's what they want you to do, but it's what I do. And you know me, I'm the Golden Stallion, I do everything different. You can flip through different, different options of what it can do. It can show you notifications, okay, which, you can choose what apps you want to get notifications from within the Mi Fit app that you have to download. But you have a lot of controls over that. Anyway, I was going to say about it showing the weather. It doesn't give you the current weather. It gives you the high and low for the day, which is kind of fine. But this is something where I wish, I've never wanted, I do want a smartwatch, but I want smartwatches that replace the phone, where there's no longer a phone. And I've talked about this many times over the years, that I really wish that this would happen, where the phone it's no longer tethered to the phone. This device is still tethered to the phone, obviously via Bluetooth. But, someday maybe that'll happen. But the one thing I said, where I wouldn't need a smartwatch ever, the one thing I like that smartwatches can do that a regular watch generally can't do is it doesn't give you the weather for the area that you're in. And for understandable reasons why it doesn't exactly do that, even though I'm sure there's one out there that does. But that's a nice little feature for this to have, is to have the weather show up on it and, give you in fact, right now it's saying clear to hail for Wednesday. Holy mother. So anyway, tomorrow's going to be a little cloudy. So it gives you a little bit of a message. That's not bad. That's kind of nice that it can do that. It has other options that you can continue to flip through. It gives you the option to start up an exercise, like a timer. There's a stopwatch built into it. There are a lot more features that are included in the app that, you can put in alarms, you can put in event reminders, and I think you can connect to your calendar more or less, but I have it doing it independently, which is, the easiest thing to do would just to be have your calendar app, if you use Business Calendar 2, like I do, you can just have it send notifications from the calendar app to the smartwatch, or not to the smartwatch, but to the fitness band, to the Mi Band 3. So, and also there is a heart rate monitor on it. So if you want to do that, you can do that. There is the overall tracking of your steps and so on. There's a lot of your usual things that you would expect from a Fitbit or any of these fitness trackers. All of those are there, and all for a $30 package. The heart rate monitor being a part of it too is pretty impressive for that price point. Now, that said, all of the fitness tracker aspects of this thing, and it's all standard fare. As far as I understand it, the heart rate tracker actually doesn't work very well. So then what's the point? Sure. But then that's not why I was even bothering with this. The instant that I got it. Now, I messed around with a little bit of the fitness features and more or less found out that they would be, even though I was going to turn them off in short order, I more or less found out that these would be meaningless to me. Why? Because I'm not really a cardio guy. Okay. Like, I mean, I work out literally every day, usually an hour and a half to 2 hours every day. I mean, some days I miss, but by and large, if my schedule's normal, I work out 7 days a week. Okay. But my workout, weightlifting and all that, no fitness tracker is going to track that shit. Like, I mean, like that's just not a part of the program. This is totally meant for cardio. And, there's a great book by Sylvester Stallone, who we might end up ironically talking about later in the episode. But there's a classic book that I read, over a decade ago, or around a decade ago, maybe, that was called Sly Moves. And I think it's a damn great book. And it is effectively a workout guide. And it's by Sylvester Stallone, and he talks about in Sly Moves. Maybe I'll get a copy of it and I'll get it professionally scanned. Like I offer a lot of books that are either out of print or will never get an ebook or something, and I end up posting them on the Patreon page for everybody to access, not just patrons. In fact, I think you can go to books, or like it's rarebooks.sovryn.to.com, and you can find the ones that I make available there. I've been doing that for about a year now, and I'll be putting up more soon. But anyway, so the book Sly Moves, in that Sylvester Stallone makes a really great case against cardio. He also has a lot of tons of other great tips that I think are really, really solid for anyone to implement in their workouts. And, he shows it off that, hey, look at the time he was like 60. And he says, well, look at me. And damn right, look at him. Looked amazing at 60. It was just before, like maybe when the Expendables 1 was coming out, I think. So anyway, he makes a great case against cardio, and how there's almost, Stallone in it makes this argument that there's almost a conspiracy with men. Okay, or again, he would argue against men, and take this for what you want. I mean, I'm a feminist ally, so Don't think I'm buying into this from a certain angle. I'm sure you'll guess what kind of angle I'm talking about. But he's saying that there's actually kind of a conspiracy against men getting large and all of this, in that there's such a weird concentration on cardio that may not be beneficial at all, and actually keeps men from, bringing on mass and a lot of other things. Now, I've heard arguments, and this is true for almost any kind of workout and any kind of routine. There's arguments for and against all the time. Of course, the reality of the situation is that we're all individuals, and all of us react differently to just about everything we do. We all react differently to diet. We all react differently to workouts, and so on. But he brings up that there was effectively kind of a conspiracy, that's kind of pushing men to only concentrate on cardio and so on. Not unironically, I've heard other recent bodybuilders discuss how on Instagram, like guys being able to develop mass is becoming a very real problem, because there's so much concentration on looking good for Instagram, being this bodybuilding model on Instagram, that you cut so much and you concentrate too much on cardio that you're never really going to get the size and kind of reach your true potential, as far as muscle mass, because you're spending so much time just making sure that you can see all the veins, and you're not willing to pack on some fat. You're not willing to pack on some bulk, right? To convert into, what do they say? To feed the gains. So Stallone might have been really ahead of the game as far as calling that this is a very real problem, because now we know it's actually a problem. But it's not really a conspiracy. It's just that people are fucking obsessed with looking good on Instagram. And okay, I'd much rather just look good for myself and for the people that I love. I mean, because really, who else does it matter who thinks you're sexy, besides yourself and your lover, right? I mean, that's so anyway, it depends on what kind of maybe celebrity you are, where that could matter. But these people on Instagram are just fucking insane, and they're not thinking about the long term, as to where Sylvester Stallone can look great at 60 because he was thinking about the long game for a good chunk of his life. Granted, he was also made the amount of money to do so. But regardless, so none of my point in saying all that with the Mi Band 3 is none of its fitness features mean jack shit to me. And they wouldn't mean jack shit to anybody who's actually engaging in serious bodybuilding, in my opinion. I mean, maybe if cardio is a part of your game, and I do run, here and there, but cardio is so far from the most important thing that I do, that to buy a specific device to handle cardio just wouldn't make any sense. or, to concentrate on cardio. Just, it makes zero fucking sense. But regardless of that, that was not the reason that I got this device. And like I said, pretty much as soon as I got it, I tested some of those features out just as a tech journalist and found them all to be pointless to me also as as somebody who's engaged in bodybuilding effectively. But that wasn't the point. The point that I wanted this for is a very simple one. I want to stop looking at my phone unless it fucking matters. Okay? That's the purpose of why I got this. I got this for the weather feature's nice. I like that. The fact that it can fucking tell me the time. Hey, dynamite. It's got a stopwatch on it. Nice. That certainly can come in handy. It works. It has a very nice vibrate alarm and all these different alarms that I can set within the app. Awesome. It can give me reminders, to like meditate at 8:30 or something like that. Fucking dynamite. Like those are all pretty nice, but effectively all of those are just notifications and notifications that I tailor. As to where my phone, now you can kind of control what notifications your phone puts on, especially with Android 9, which my Nokia 6.1 operates on, which by the way, this operates with both iOS and Android. So, if you're an iOS guy, this is certainly handy for you. But all I wanted was, I want to know when I'm getting a telegram, and I want to know when I'm getting a Signal message, and I want to know when I'm getting something on Patreon, when I'm getting a Patreon message, because the only social media I engage in is giving a damn shit, and I do give a shit about what my patrons are saying, what they're sharing, and what they want me to know or what they want to ask me about, because the patrons are... you're the executive producers of the show and you mean everything to me. So, that's important to me, but that's all I want. I don't want to look at my phone. I don't want to have to like turn the power button on my phone to see, well, shit, are there any notifications or anything like that? I just want to know what this is. Now I have Telegram and Signal and all that set to where when they notify, they don't say in the notification what's being said. You could set it for that, and then you could just read quite a bit off of it on here. Also, I get my text messages on here, so I can kind of read my text messages. Can't do any replying or anything from it, but that's okay. I just want to know, because if I get a Signal message, generally I have that set up, or, the people that contact me on Signal, it's important. Okay, and they're the people that I really care about. Granted, there are some Sovereign Tech listeners that have have Signal message me on there, and that's fine. Telegram, kind of a similar situation. Actually, Wire also I will get on there, but I only want the notifications that are effectively potentially emergencies or life or death. That's all I want to know. And it has absolutely revolutionized my relationship with my phone. Now, understand that this operates on Bluetooth and it does tether to my phone. So if I'm 30 feet away from my phone, it's not going to be able to receive those notifications. That kind of sucks. What I wish is that really this had maybe its own SIM card or something like that, and I could get notifications and I could literally leave my phone at home. And just know if something important comes through right on my wrist. Now I say, that I hide what's in Signal or Telegram. That way, if your concern is Xiaomi, fuck the Chinese are seeing what I'm saying on Signal. This is no good. Stop. Okay, stop. And we're going to talk about the realities around all that in a little bit anyway. But point being is that no, Xiaomi is not reading my Signal or Telegram messages, even though they're sending a notification to my wrist, on their device, okay, through their app. So, and the app is pretty feature rich. And it's a pretty slick app. It's a little hard to find the settings. You have to actually go to your device to change the settings on it, or, to get into the alarms, the reminders, and what apps can send notifications and so on. And it can only store 5 notifications at a time. But honestly, if I get one Signal message, I know I need to go and look at either Signal on my desktop or on my phone, in fairly short order. So, the fact that it only stores 5 notifications at a time, not a big deal. But again, very simply, the entire purpose of me wearing this is to get those notifications. I turned everything else off. I'll take a drill bit to the fucking heart rate monitor. I don't care. I don't need any of that. All I want is I want to stop looking at my phone. I want to stop looking at that screen. If it's important, good. The wrist will tell me and I'll go and take a look. Otherwise, it could sit on the charger for the rest of its goddamn life for all I care. because I remember when Sergey Brin got a ton of shit for this, and rightfully so, when he was saying that the smartphone what did he say? It eviscerated men? Or no, it wasn't eviscerated. That might not be too accurate. It emasculated men. Is that what he said? And that's why he was trying to sell Google Glass to people, so you get notifications right in your eye. Okay, that doesn't really solve things. In fact, that's twice as bad. Granted, you don't have to look down at your phone, but then you're just constantly getting notifications in your fucking eye. No, I think this is much more the real solution to what is, he used unfortunate terms, but I get his point, is that we have become slaves to our notifications. This wristband is almost a badge of freedom, okay, from being a slave to notifications, because you only get the notifications that matter, and you can know about it. I mean, I get it. If you have those relationships where you got to know at a moment's notice what's going on, I have clients, I have this and that, whatever, who, I got to know what's happening. Right away when it goes down. But then you don't want to be constantly, did this? Let me check the phone. Let me check the phone. That's got to stop. We got to get over that. The phone is, I've been saying this for a very long time. The smartphone is a net negative. It has become a net negative in our lives. Okay. Where it is just, you can say, it adds this, it adds this. Oh, I got my Bitcoin wallet on there. Hey, look, dynamite. Okay. But I think there's plenty of other ways where all of that can happen. And I think that there's going to be some in-between devices coming down the line, or maybe even the smartwatch will finally take hold. It's funny. I'm kind of supportive of the Apple Watch because I want the smartwatch to become more of a thing, and where our notifications are far more passive than they are aggressive, and our attention isn't something like that we're constantly giving it to the smartphone, and just making sure, is there actually notification? Is there a notification? It's so easy when you're just wearing a device that's so light, you don't even remember that you're wearing it, and you just get a little buzz on the arm and you're like, okay, notification. And there you go. And it's not Pavlov's dog or anything like that. This is really, as far as, changing our relationship with technology, as far as me changing my relationship, especially with the addictive qualities of a smartphone, right down to, there's so much that they do to make you looking at the screen an addictive affair on a smartphone. This is the antithesis to that in a very real way. But again, that's all I use it for is notifications. I do not use it for the fitness tracker stuff. All of that I completely turn off. You can even get third-party apps so you don't have to use the Mi Fit app if you're worried that the Mi Fit app is still collecting data about you. You can get third-party apps that will work with the Mi Band 3 that will only do the notifications and will only send notifications. It's super, super fucking handy. If you want to try it out, just keep it in perspective. Okay. I have argued against using fitness trackers for a very long time because that data can be used against you in court, and it already has been. Okay, we're like, why was your heart rate this, or how many steps did you go that day, and stuff like that. Just turn all that off and just use it for the notifications alone, so that way you stop paying attention to your phone. Whoo, you see that? I was a poet and I didn't know it. Anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Link is in the show notes if you want to check one of these bad boys out. And we'll be right back with more. Woo! Hey, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this is a great fucking show. And you know what? I agree with you. And I'm not just saying it because I'm the host. Woo, but I am the podcast champion, baby. And let me tell you, if you want to help out the podcast champion, you want to help out the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, and you want to make Sovryn Tech an even bigger show, here's how you do it. And don't worry, it's not for free, and you get something out of it. You go to Patreon. You go to patreon.com/Sovryn Tech, SOVRYN Tech. Patreon.com/Sovryn Tech. Become a Sovryn Tech patron, and you will get access to literally thousands of hours of bonus content. There's new content every week. You get to be in the live Q&A hangouts that we do every month. You get to access to the Wednesday Q&A. We do one every single week, and it goes a good hour strong, if not longer if needed, depending on how many questions there are. That's only for patrons, and all you got to do is at least $1 a month. Some do significantly more, and I'm honored by that. But become a patron, support the show, help it grow. Patreon.com/Sovryn Tech. And I thank you to all the patrons already out there and all of the ones to come. Patreon.com/sovereigntech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
This week's online review.
It's time for everybody's favorite news segment. That is this week's online review, where I find a product online and I look at the reviews. We find only the best, sometimes the worst, but usually the best. And we get the best reviews to entice you to purchase such a thing. Well, maybe. I don't know if you're going to be able to buy this week's. But anyway, I do want to say, so knocked out a couple segments on this episode just to make sure there's certain stories that I got in per request of Sovereign Tech listeners. But I do want to say that I am keeping a very close eye on the Australian encryption law that is going on right now, or anti-encryption law, I guess you could call it. And I want to let the dust settle on this to see what happens. A lot of people are really outraged about it because effectively their concern is that this is going to break all encryption and nobody's going to be, Signal's not going to be safe anymore, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to leave you with one food for thought on this whole thing that is probably the most important, okay? Signal's encryption is about as rock solid as we can imagine. That goes true for some other apps as well, okay? Signal's certainly the cream of the crop. Here's what I want you to consider, okay, is the keyboard, the touchscreen keyboard. Yes, the Australian law that goes through, which would pretty much force any tech company operating in Australia in some form or fashion, this would include Google, Facebook, Microsoft, go down the list, that if they have data on a individual, a person of interest that they are trying to get it about, that even if it's encrypted, if they have the ability to unencrypt it, they must do so and hand over that data. The keyboard app, no matter how good your encryption is, and even if you turn it on to incognito mode within the app, right? Like Signal, you can turn it on incognito, the keyboard into an incognito mode. You tell me, what guarantees do you have that your keyboard, your touchscreen keyboard, isn't tracking everything that you type out? Exactly. So, to be worried about this, sure, it's a concern, but I think this is already very much happening. But we will go into deeper detail as more details about this and more what the fallout is, the reactions of it. I mean, I don't want it to become law because I don't agree with any law. I'm an anarchist, but we'll get into more of that in the future. Okay. So I just want you to know I'm aware of the story. I'm keeping an eye on the story and what's going on, and we'll see what happens and we will talk about it. You don't want to be too reactionary, but you might have a reaction to this week's online review, which is a pen of all things. But this is not some ordinary pen. Oh, no. This is, and I don't know how to pronounce this company's name. Montegrappa? Maybe that's it. They are a luxury brand. I've seen their stuff before. But this is the Montegrappa Sylvester Stallone Chaos Limited Edition Fountain Pen. Holy shit. Now, let me read a little bit about the pen, then I'll give you the price. Sylvester Stallone's Chaos Pen will be fashioned from precious materials and produced in limited numbers. The body of the pen is made of black pearlized celluloid with overlays in sterling silver or solid 18-karat gold. Overlays are finished by hand by Montegrappa's skilled craftsmen and feature an antique finish with accents in translucent enamel and reds and yellows, the colors of fire. The design is characterized by the juxtaposition of life and death, the former represented by the early forms of life on Earth, reptiles, such as snakes and lizards, the latter by the skull. This is a fine work of art. And though it is not as mighty as the pen itself, the ultimate defining detail bearing both a fist and a skull is the pen's clip in the form of a sword. Of course, playing off of the old adage of the pen is mightier than the sword. The Chaos Pen is the first from the Cult Collection and is available as a limited edition of 1,000 fountain pens and 912 roller balls in sterling silver, which represents Montegrappa's 1912 date of establishment. Additionally, 100 fountain pens and 100 roller balls in solid 18-karat gold and 10 fountain pens and 10 roller balls in solid 18-karat gold with precious stones on it will be available for enthusiasts of both the Screen Legend and Montegrappa. This pen, I mean, I read that description. This pen is for the low price of $5,000 $5,770. $5,770. Now, Montegrappa also did a watch, which costs about the same, which has a similar design with skulls and lizards and all the stuff around it. And it's all, an art design by Sylvester Stallone himself, right? And obviously this is inspired by the Expendables. You can pretty well tell by the style. Looks very much like Stallone's character from the Expendables. Let's read some of these reviews for this $6,000 pen. I mean, wow. So here we go. Here's the first one from 2014, Indelible by James O. Thatch. Do you appreciate fine craftsmanship? This is the review. Then you'll understand the unique appeal of the Montegrappa Chaos pen. International tastemaker Sylvester Stallone has plumbed the depths of his creative imagination, and the inevitable result is chaos. The visionary genius behind such varied works as Rocky 1 through 5, Rambo 1 through 4, and Rhinestone, Mr. Stallone has once again redrawn the map of the possible. Sorry, serious. This is a beautiful pen. $6,000. I got to talk about this. This visionary genius behind such varied works as Rocky 1 through 5, Rambo 1 through 4, and Rhinestone, Mr. Stallone has once again redrawn the map of the possible by mindcrafting this exquisite writing instrument. It may look like something you picked up at a Tijuana border crossing, but don't let its junky appearance fool you. Once visitors to your executive office or Miami narco mansion recognize it as the handiwork of Stallone, all questions of taste will evaporate. The body is fashioned from black pearlized celluloid, quite possibly the world's fanciest way of saying plastic. Inlaid with 18-karat gold and featuring swords, skulls, and snakes, the design, evocative of Nazi pirates, perfectly symbolizes the frenzied violence of Mr. Stallone's penmanship. Feel it lurch to life in your hand. This is a pen that begs to be written with, even if you have nothing to say. And when there are no more words, its patented squip feature will launch a burst of ink from the skull, creating the splatter feature that has been Sly's signature since First Blood. If you're one who writes till your fingers bleed, the jagged exterior of the Chaos pen will cut your writing time in half. But even if you can barely sign your own name, this pen will communicate volumes about your finances, your relationships, and your basic mental equilibrium. In a word, chaos. What a pen, folks. What a fucking pen. All right, let's see. Here's the next one. Let's read another review here. It's like, this is from October 18th, 2018, very fresh. It's like having a little Guy Fieri with you wherever you go. Okay, this is very serious. Cobra, over the top. Stop or my mom will shoot. Half of Tango and Cash. Judge Dredd. These iconic movies serve as the backdrop of the greatest creative mind of our time, Sylvester Stallone, and his greatest accomplishment, the Chaos pen. Designed for refined tastes, much like Rocky 5. This pen will demand respect, adoration from all who allowed to gaze upon it. All right, that's enough. So, folks, if you got a spare $6,000, I know crypto's low right now. It's crypto winter. But for fuck's sake, it's also crypto Christmas. Get that special someone you love. The Chaos pen by Sylvester Stallone for $6,000 on Amazon. Link is in the show notes. And the ink on a diamond-studded 18-karat gold rollerball is just waiting to get on the paper. I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Hey, baby, I know. You are tired of Gmail. You have had enough. Well, I have a solution for you. What I want you to do is you go to Fastmail, okay? It's Fastmail.sovryn.to.com. That's the URL you can use. You're going to get a discount with that. You are going to love this. This is email for email's sake. This company does nothing more. Just email, and they do it right. All the latest security technologies. You want to log into your account with your YubiKey? You can do that. Fastmail has your hookup. Very inexpensive plans. I want you to check it out. You go to fastmail.sovryn.to.com. That'll get you the hookup, and it's an honor to have them as a part of Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
The Climax.
It is time for the Climax, baby, where I get to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. It could be a movie, could be a TV show, could be a comic book. Boy, do I love comic books. You know, when you cut me, comic book ink all over. It's amazing. Anyway, I mean, it could be anything, or it could be a topic. And this week's actually a topic. In fact, it's a story that was sent in to me by a Sovryn Tech listener who pretty much said when they read it, all they could do was think about their favorite Satanist. Now, ironically, like, I know I get lumped in with Satanists. I don't exactly consider myself a Satanist. I mean, I get it that as a ethical hedonist, I get lumped in with that. And certainly, I mean, I've read most of the Satanist works out there, except for like their pickup guides for women, or whatever the hell those crazy things are. Believe me, they have them. And I think if I haven't made available yet, I will make available, and Satanists would appreciate it. I have a lot of rare Satanist works that have never been put in the ebook format that I could share on the Patreon page, and I will do so, because they would just say, well, if you can do it, you can do it. I mean, so here's the thing. So one of my major, how can I put this, mottos, my Charlemagne, perhaps, in life is, and I've said this many times on the show, is very simple, and this is very much like a life philosophy of mine. What's not nailed down is mine. What I can pry loose is also mine. That falls very much in line, I think, with Satanism, meaning that if I can pry something loose from the laws of copyright, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I'll do with it, and I think a Satanist would appreciate that. So if I haven't shared those books, I don't recall if I did. If I didn't, I'll make sure that happens pretty soon. Regardless, I am honored by the association, because as this article from Lifehacker, of all things, in October of 2018, I guess they're having their annual Evil Week, which is a wonderful thing. I know that by and large, what Satanism puts out there is actually a very good and wonderful thing. In fact, a lot of it, if you're some of my libertarian or anarchist listeners who may be fans or at least knowledgeable of Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism, maybe you consider yourself an objectivist with either a capital O or a small o. Those are two very different things. Satanism falls very much in line with that. Of course, I would argue that objectivism and Satanism both fall under the concepts of ethical hedonism, which is, again, why I think I get, like I said, lumped in with Satanism, all of which is fine. But this article is actually very interesting, and I want to read it and discuss it, and I think there's a lot of philosophy to take away from this. Now, understand, this is the Climax, so even though this is a science and tech show, this is the part where I get to talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about it, and Satan would be so proud. So anyway, here we go. Surprisingly good life lessons from the Satanic Bible by Claire Lohr. So this is by a woman. Bravo. Let's read it. If I learned one thing from reading the Satanic Bible by Anton Szandor LaVey, it's that LaVey liked to fuck. But I also learned a lot of other life lessons, and they are surprisingly practical and actually pretty positive. Stallion, breaking in for a second. I actually get often, especially ever since I've grown out my goatee over the past couple of years, a lot of people think I look like Anton LaVey. Not saying that's intentional. Moving on. Though there is a lot of stuff in there about rituals and bells and witchy women wearing sexy outfits. Woo! I'll take that, Stallion. Yes. Unless you're old, because that's not the energy LaVey was looking for, the overall message of the book is one of self-acceptance, self-indulgence, and self-respect. If one were to revise the ubiquitous live, love, laugh wall decal in the spirit of Satanism, it would read, eat, bone, avenge. Hey, not bad. I don't know about the avenge part so much, but right on. Maybe it should say eat, fuck, and avenge. But reading on, the Satan described by LaVey isn't the one the church lady warned you about. Satan is a concept, symbol, or force to be harnessed to live an enjoyable, successful life. Satan is not an anthropomorphic horned entity to whom one sacrifices animals and children. In fact, that's a big Satanist no-no. In the chapter, quote, on the choice of human sacrifice, end quote, LaVey explains that, quote, under no circumstances would a Satanist sacrifice any animal or baby, end quote. How does one generate the energy needed for effective spells, you ask? By jerking off, cool. Or by sacrificing someone, quote, asking to be cursed by their very action, end quote, like a Nazi, I guess. So now that we have the pesky issue of baby killing out of the way, let's take a look at some of the lessons contained in the Satanic Bible that are surprisingly applicable in the day-to-day. So Stallion breaking in again, I have read, again, well, I think I said that already. I have read the Satanist Bible. I have read a lot of varying, stuff that is within the Church of Satan library, okay, of Anton LaVey, either written by him or Peter Gilmore and so on. Continuing with the story, the subheader here, it's okay to want to feel good. Woo, I'll say. It's too bad that LaVey died just 2 years shy of the Bloodhound Gang's Bad Touch, the song Bad Touch, because he would have been obsessed. The point that you and me, baby, ain't nothing but a couple of animals is driven home over and over, but LaVey advises that instead of fighting our base animalistic desires, we give in to them and just be happy, dude. There is one caveat to following one's bliss, and that is that one mustn't do so in a way that brings harm to people who haven't done harm to you. The book is very pro the 7 deadly sins, as it's these things that lead to pleasure, and pleasure is good. That's why it feels good. Woo, Stallion breaking in for a second. Preach. Exactly. Let's read about the 7 deadly sins. Envy is simply looking with favor upon the possessions of others, right? That's what I was saying about, what's not nailed down is mine and what I can pry loose is also mine. And being greedy is just wanting more than what one already has. Granted, Stallion breaking in for a second, that is kind of like, we know when we say greedy that that's not exactly what we mean. But sure, like the gist of just wanting more than what you have already. Yeah, it's a nice way of thinking about it. Reading on, both are described as the motivating forces of ambition, without which very little of any importance would be accomplished. Stallion saying, hell yes. Gluttony, explains LaVey, is simply eating more than you need to keep yourself alive. Well, that can certainly be enjoyable, even though sometimes it can get us into a little bit of trouble. Similarly, pride is wanting to look good, not wanting to get out of your warm and cozy bed is sloth. And lust is, well, lust, which I would say not wanting to get out of a cozy bed, especially if there's a gal next to you. I don't fucking blame you. Wanting to look good. Hell, I'm all about that. And lust. Hey, name of the game with the Golden Stallion, baby. Wanting to eat because things taste good, sleep because it feels good, and make paper because you want the same cool shit your friends have, meaning make money, is not something you should be ashamed of. And these sins can motivate you to improve yourself and your life. If you want to go to the gym for the sole purpose of making that booty more shelf-like, that's a perfectly good reason. God damn it is. Woo. And you may end up extending your life and improving your mental health in your prideful quest for a better butt. This all may seem selfish, and it is, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Pride, for example, can motivate one to do great altruistic things. If activism wasn't motivated at least a little bit by pride, there would be way fewer Instagram photos of people holding protest signs. Though I'm sure there are people who are capable of volunteering at a puppy shelter and not tweeting about it, you can't tell me they don't feel good after a day of helping sad dogs who are always deserving of help. Yeah, so a couple things on this, okay? I think pride is a very fine and wonderful thing, and I agree that it is part of what pushes us, what makes us ambitious, which first off I think is sexy. Second off, I think is damned wonderful, to make more of yourself, be more than you are right now. And, all those are very, very wonderful things. But I do think that there are actually problems with the concept, with the dichotomy of pride and humble. Okay, because even in acting, even in wanting to be humble, And if you reflect and say, oh, I am so humble, are you not being proud of being humble? And is that not the antithesis of being humble? Of course you are. So I think the way we describe certain emotions or sins have problems. Okay. Like pride. And I think if we just thought of pride and not so much because there's this inherent thing within the English speaking people that being humble and being proud, like proud, goes before a fall, and being humble, that's whatever, that's a great thing in all of this. Where I think that there's actually not a middle ground, but there's some feeling in between those. That is the reality of the situation, because neither of those terms do a good job of really describing, I think, where ambition and forward motion in improving oneself comes from. So there's a little bit of a problem with that. But also, with pride allowing for altruistic things to come to bear, Zog has a great video. It came out a few months ago anyway. I really loved it. And it's also something that, falls in line with a lot of my personal philosophy. And they called it egoistic altruism, meaning that you recognize that doing good for others has a net benefit of good for you, is a net positive for you. Okay. But you recognize that you're doing good for other people because it benefits you. Now, is that a problem? Is that selfish of you? No. Now, selfish you got to be very careful with that term, okay? Because selfish is that's another term, kind of like proud and humble, where I think we have issues. I mean, there's so many problems within our language. We are missing so many words to describe certain things, and maybe some things just don't have words for them, okay, or could never have words. They're the ineffable, kind of like what Max Stirner would say about the individual or consciousness. You're never really going to be able to explain it because it is literally ineffable. But anyway, selfishness is a problem because the use of that term is a problem. Selfishness means that you are being self-centered or self-interested to the point that it harms another person, which, as we made clear, is, against the concepts of Satanism. Okay. So I think a better term to use instead of selfish is self-interested. There is nothing wrong with being self-interested. You are by nature self-interested. It is why, as a baby, you cry when somebody hurts you or takes your binky away or tries to force you to eat peas, those disgusting things. Because you are by nature self-interested. And that is all right. And we need to accept that that's all right for us to be self-interested. Now, selfish, I would argue, is a bad term, even though I know like Ayn Rand would try to, make something good out of that with virtuous selfishness and so on. She was being incendiary and she knew it. Because again, selfishness is even self-centered are concepts that imply, maliciousness to another party beyond yourself, to your own, to your own aggrandizement. So I think using the term self-interested is more important than talking about selfishness. And I don't really believe in using terms just to be incendiary, okay, or just to get clicks. Let's have some precision with our language. So being self-interested is a very great, wonderful, and completely fucking natural thing. Being self-interested, is that going to cause you to engage in the 7 deadly sins? Well, by LaVey's definitions, which aren't too far off, sure, I think it will, but that's why hedonism is such a great thing. Reading on, let's go on to the next subheader here. Enthusiastic consensual sex is the best sex. Woo, I like this. In fact, I even wear a wristband that says "got consent" on it with a question mark. Fuck yes. Reading on, I don't think it was a coincidence that this book was published in 1969. Even today, one can almost hear LaVey hissing "yes" from the grave. Yes, indeed. In fact, I'll tell you, the last 2 digits on my license plate, 69. Anyway, the Satanic Bible is very pro-sex, but it's also very pro-consent. Satanism has a bad reputation for compulsory orgies, but though Satanism does advocate for sexual freedom, it does not encourage orgiastic activity or extramarital affairs for those to whom they do not come naturally. emphasis on for those that it doesn't come naturally. But anyway, group sex is chill if it brings you and your partner joy, but fighting through tears during an orgy to prove, quote, to others or worse yourself that you are emancipated from sexual guilt, end quote, is not. Sex is good if you enjoy it, and the amount and type you want to have is the amount and type you should be having. Or if you don't like sex, not having. Satanism is down with pretty much all forms of consensual sexual activity. Masturbation is cool. Straight sex is cool. Gay sex is cool. Group sex is cool. And no sex is cool. Indulging in fetishes and kinks is also cool. Quote, as long as it involves no one who does not wish to be involved, end quote. Indulgence, not compulsion, is an important distinction. Indulgence is doing what you want to, again, as long as it's not hurting others and not feeling bad about it. If having casual sex safely with a lot of different partners genuinely makes you feel empowered or is just very fun, there's no reason you should feel bad about ethically doing so. If it makes you feel icky and that ickiness does not stem from guilt you were told you should feel by someone else, don't do it. Compulsive behavior, whether it comes from a place of morality and forced abstinence or something else, is not the sex droid you're looking for. A, quote, Satanist is master of rather than mastered by sex, end quote. Woo. Wow. A lot to say on that. Yeah, look, everybody's different, and I think that there are arguments that could be made both ways for casual sex. If you are a single person who wants to be promiscuous, rock and roll. Okay, really, rock and roll. Have a great time. You're treating. None of these are really relationships, so you're not treating much of anything seriously, and you're engaging in, your animalistic desires and going forward. If you're in a relationship and you want to engage in this stuff, I think arguments can be made that, kind of hookups and all of this stuff may come from areas of trauma. I mean, it's different for everybody. It really, really is, as far as how you can make these arguments. The important thing is, which Satanism is rightfully bringing up, is that everything is consensual with both parties at that. Both parties. It's not just what your idea of it, it's what the other person's thinking about it too. And can we ever really know what another person is truly feeling? No, we can't. But we can try with our limited form of communication that is, I don't think this is a word, but verbality. Okay, there, I just made a new one. With what we speak into the air, if that, then we run with that. All right, but it has to be consensual. You don't have to prove anything to anyone as far as sex goes, And I take issue with a lot of people. There are people who would make the claim that polyamory, especially like really, really kind of big tent polyamory, is somehow the more evolved nature of the species. Now, I've talked about in the past that there may be like a certain number where this is like, the perfect relationship or something like that. But to somehow say that this is what everybody should be doing, everybody should have 5 partners, everybody should blah, blah, blah. No, so this can go. Satanism is right to point out all that matters is that everything's consensual and that everybody's agreeing to it. Okay. But I will say that I worry, like, consent's the most important thing. And I think it behooves us to create environments where consent can really thrive. Now, what I mean by that, I am not a fan of the concept of marriage. Okay, the idea of contracts being a part of the process of love is a pretty easy way for me to get a rubbery one. Like, I mean, okay, yeah, let me sign on the dotted line to prove to you that you mean something to me. Actions, not words, folks. Okay. So that said, when I think that there are, in any kind of relationship, I think when there is a power dynamic where how to put this exactly, there are consequences to everything you do. Some consequences are positive, some are negative. Okay. But I think we should pay attention to what are the consequences. If we decide to ever leave a relationship, what are the consequences of leaving that relationship? Those consequences should really be minimal. They should really, really be minimal, because if they're not minimal, if they are substantial, if they are negative consequences that are substantial, if someone wants to leave a relationship, that can turn consent into a very fuzzy affair. Because how much do they feel enslaved? Perhaps to the other person, or I don't know, indebted or something like that. And how much do they feel like, how amicable can it be? for, say, a separation to occur and so on. This is really important because I think some people could feel almost subhuman in a relationship and they wouldn't walk away from it simply because they think they can't. And if a person thinks they can't get out of a relationship, how can you even have consent? Not real consent. I mean, you could say that a person always has choice. Sure. But there are environments where, just like there are environments that endear love and peace, there are environments that endear, actual consent, especially when it comes to sex or when it comes to relationships of any kind. This is really, really important. And I think it would do all of us well to consider this, the importance of consent within sex and really relationships in general. It doesn't get discussed enough, and I don't think people think hard enough about it. But yeah, have whatever fucking sex you want. Have a great time. Do it 5 times a day. Hey, believe me, I am all about, the 3 to 5 time a day train. Like I am on board, baby. Choo choo. Okay. So, but then also, if you're the kind of person doesn't want to have sex, not your game, not your bag. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. All that matters is consent, and choosing not to have it is as much as an important part of consent, obviously, as any. So just want to make that clear, because I think some people think that I think you're crazy if you don't want to have sex. No, I don't think you're crazy. Do what you want, But anyway, Satanists, they got that one right. The article will go on to describe. I want to read more. But the article does say, look, not everything in Satanism is right on, and I agree. Not everything in it is right on. There's a reason I don't call myself a Satanist, but it does get a lot right. And I think it's bringing up, this article is bringing up a lot of it. And I'm glad to highlight it because, I think the real reason that people were afraid of, like, the stuff that LaVey was putting out there and so on, granted, it was at a very odd cultural time in the United States. Okay, a time where people were very suggestible, shall we put it that way, because they were trying to figure out, there was, I think in the 60s, I'm not going to say that the hippies, and which, hey, I love hippies. Okay, I'm not going to say the whole free love movement and all this other stuff was as big a deal as maybe as it gets claimed to be, but without a doubt, the United States was really going through a serious culture shift where it was questioning everything. This sometimes led to very unfortunate things getting developed. It also led to, I think, some very great things getting developed, or at least better than what was there before. Satanism being one of these things. Now, a lot of the logic behind Satanism is, and not everything is logic. Logic is the beginning of wisdom, right? Not the end. Is very sound. And I think that's what scared a lot of people, and why a lot of, not the Church of Satan, but say the Church of, either God or, Jesus or whoever the hell you're following, out of some Abrahamic faith, was very worried about it, because they're like, oh shit, if this message gets out there, people aren't going to be coming, they're not going to church on Sunday anymore. I think there was a genuine fear around this, and so they had to paint it and come up with ways to paint it. Not to say that LaVey didn't like the free marketing, I'm sure he did, but they had to paint it as being, of the devil and so on. And yeah, like I said, LaVey probably wanted a lot of that, but I think that that's really what was going on there. I mean, they pretty much had to react to it because this was popular stuff in the day. No one wants to talk about how popular it was, but it was. It's still fairly popular. Okay. And part of the reason is because I do think it resonates with us innately, or at least some parts of it does. And again, the stance against it really all came from, I mean, I remember, who was it? Was it Rose McGowan or something who they said, oh, she's a Satanist and all this. And it's like, when you find out what Satanism actually is, great. Well, I bet she's having a good time in life, and there is only this life. So phenomenal. But anyway, yeah, I think people lose perspective on this and realize how much is really marketing. Yes, LaVey was engaging in marketing and calling it Satanism, and being incendiary with that and inflammatory. But also the church was engaging in marketing, or a marketing campaign, and fighting a culture war. Okay, and I mean the Christian church specifically, or more particularly, in so, engaging with the Church of Satan and saying, oh, they're of the devil, blah, blah, blah. It's marketing on both sides. They're not to say that one side was necessarily the good guy in the matter. Okay. Anyway, let's read on more about Satanism. This is an interesting one. Punch Nazis and slay vampires. That's the subheader. LaVey never explicitly said he was Antifa, or we call it Antifa. Antifa. But he was very much in favor of, quote, making yourself a terror to your adversary, end quote, and treating those who would not follow the golden rule with the wrath they deserve. Satanism doesn't advocate violence for its own sake, but the goal of dealing blow for blow and doom for doom with compound interest, liberally added thereunto, is to make people who would do you or others harm can reconsider their shitty actions and shitty opinions. Or as LaVey puts it, quote, when he goeth his way, he will possess much additional wisdom to ruminate over, end quote. Quote, you cannot love everyone, end quote, and according to the Satanic Bible, not everyone is worthy of your love. Quote, praying for, end quote, people who cause actual tangible damage in the name of love is not only ineffective, it's unnatural. There are bad people out there, and it's okay to hate them and wish them harm. In addition to the obviously outwardly aggressive, LaVey has no time for the passively vicious, which he refers to as psychic vampires. These are people who you hang out with because you feel guilty if you don't, even when you don't enjoy their company all that much. These are the people who never directly make their needs known, yet you always find yourself doing little favors for, none of which are returned. This is the person who doesn't have a lot of friends because they're just really picky about who they spend their time with, and after a round of social shit talking, will, quote, hasten to add you fulfill every requirement and are truly an outstanding exception, end quote, and are, quote, one of the very few worthy of his or her friendship, end quote. Essentially, if you find yourself giving to one very particular human, yet never seem to get anything in return, save for shiny gifts meant to inspire a sense of obligation, whose needs you always prioritize, even though they don't show you the same consideration, get them out of your life. This obviously does not apply to children. You can't get rid of those. Doing so is not especially difficult. Just say no. If it seems like I am picking and choosing the parts I like from this book here, it's because I very much am. The Satanic Bible is not without problems. Not only did LaVey plagiarize and borrow many of his ideas, but there are definite vibes of ableism along with some Ayn Randyism nonsense. It's also offensively corny at times, like, did you know that, quote, evil is backwards for live, end quote? And LaVey loses some of his sex-positive points by suggesting that older witches leave the sexy garb to the younger ladies and instead embrace the cookie lady aesthetic. Side note, I don't feel the sexy cookie lady isn't my vibe. The Satanic Bible isn't something one should read without a critical eye and then follow blindly. In fact, doing so wouldn't be very satanic, as one is supposed to, quote, question all things, end quote. But there's a lot of terrible in the world, and embracing an indulgent, sex-positive, anti-jerk worldview can help. Whether you call it finding your joy, living your truth, or hailing Satan, doing the things you want to do without guilt, building relationships of value to you, and sticking up for yourself will make your life a lot better, so go get yours. Unless yours involves white supremacy, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, fascism, or any other similar harmful ideology, in which case you can get punched. Okay, well, I'm not going to argue for the punching here or anything like that. The idea of getting shitty people out of your life, sure, there's plenty of peaceful ways to do that and do so. Okay, if you have psychic vampires, sociopaths, get those people out of your fucking life. And yes, sociopaths are a very real thing. Okay, in fact, I dare argue, some people can seem nice for a while, give them a year. Okay, nobody, I think, can hold up the facade for any longer than a year. And eventually you start to see the cracks after about a year, and you want to pay attention for those. All right. Now, in the arguments of people in your life and so on, like what Satanism is bringing up, that, they only do little things for you. Look, if somebody does substantial things for you and it's a give-give relationship, which I think those, that's the same thing as saying win-win, which I think those absolutely exist. Of course, those are fine. Okay. But when it's somebody who never does anything for you whatsoever and just only wants for themselves, yeah, you got a sociopath on your hands. So that, again, that's very, very legit. I agree with, I don't know, maybe 70% of what Satanism puts out there. And honestly, I even like the corny stuff. Okay, I really do. However, this is nowhere near from new. I mean, and to say that he was plagiarizing Ayn Rand, I already brought that up. To say that there was like plagiarism in general going on in other ways, sure. This is not new. Like what Satanism espouses is far from new. It is effectively a well-branded and marketed version, again, of ethical hedonism. That's all that it really is. There have been other attempts at this, but I think it's an important thing to study, to read, and because it comes in a more modern language and doesn't come with a lot of the hoity-toity, I don't mean corny, I mean the hoity-toity that Ayn Rand would put out there, I think it's a very worthwhile thing to read about. It might be one of the better compilations of writings on ethical hedonism out there. So I'm happy to talk about it, and I'm honored that this person thought of me when they read this, because if I'm espousing what's said here, by and large, dynamite. That's great. I'm glad that you're picking up that this is my message. But again, this is nothing new. But the importance of studying this is that this is the very same stuff. What LaVey and Satanism puts out there in a very real way is the same stuff that has been put out there by various hellfire clubs, by, you could think of like the monks of Mendenham from, 17th, 18th century, right? Sir Francis Dashwood, fancy Full dross, right? Do what thou wilt. And of course, people could talk about that's Aleister Crowley and so on. I firmly recommend reading Crowley's work. I think there's absolute brilliance in the works of Aleister Crowley. This kind of message has come down throughout time. But here's the rub, is that I think if you saw the names of the people that ascribed to a lot of these ideas, okay, not necessarily Satanism, but maybe more of its historical counterparts, you would find that some of the most brilliant people that have ever graced the earth, Enlightenment figures, go down the list, women, men, and so on, have all been part of various groups that espouse these very ideas that Satanism puts out there, that espouse this very notion of not feeling guilty about doing something that feels fucking good. Granted, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. And there's a long list of them. And I could go down the list of all the groups that have done this. And it's not only that. This goes as far back. Some of the very first writings that we have from humanity at all that we know of. We could go back 6,000-7,000 years. We could go back to the Sumerians. And you will find this very notion of effectively eat, drink, and be merry. Okay? It is in our oldest fucking writings. The idea of doing what feels good and not feeling guilty about it. This is important to do this. And it's important because it gives us the permission to dream. Everybody talks about how it's important to think outside of the box. Well, get out of the fucking box of morality, which is bullshit in the first place. Get out of the box of morality and pay attention, I guess like LaVey would say, to some of your animal instincts. And before anybody says that your animal instincts lead you to kill, no, sorry. Not other human beings anyway. It doesn't work that way. You have something called empathy, folks, and it is a biological function of who you are. And it does not react well to when you kill another human being. Give me a fucking break. We're animals, but we're not that kind of animals. Even that, Dorian Sagan, right? Dorian Sagan made it very clear. Life flourished not through combat, but through networking. Life developed from that very thing, from networking. It gets more into that egoistic altruism that I brought up. If I think of it, I'll put a link in the show notes for that video. I think it's very interesting to check out. Okay, but we need to have, I don't know if it's Satanism, if it's me, if it's ethical hedonism, whatever it is, that gives you the permission, because we're taught to seek permission in the authoritarian structures that we live in. If you need permission to go out there and to be fucking happy doing what you want to do, and for you to think that your ideas aren't crazy and that what you want to say isn't crazy. Maybe someone will think it's crazy, but they don't get to do anything about it because you want to say it or because you said it. I am giving you that permission. Satanism is giving you that permission. So I think it's a worthwhile thing to look into. I think it's something that, whatever language works for you, if it's Satanism, if it's objectivism, if it's, I don't know, go down the list. I'm not necessarily saying read objectivism, but you got to get my point, okay? That whatever allows you to genuinely pursue what you want intrinsically is a wonderful thing. And I'll admit it. I really wish that Anton LaVey didn't use the term Satanism. Like, I enjoy it. I like pissing off, I don't want to say fundamentalists, because I actually have some respect for fundamentalists, because they stick to the words that they read from. The more stringent, the more easily offended. I may enjoy pissing them off here and there, okay? Because I know that I have the, shall we say, ethical high ground, okay? But it's a shame that some of our best messages in modern English are put within terms like Satanism that keep it from having a broader appeal. You know, that is a real shame. And I wish it was out there, but I'm glad that this article highlighted saying, hey, you know, actually there's some really great shit in this. And, you know, that's not to say that LaVey was any kind of genius. If anything, he was just a marketing genius. But I think there are things to take away from this. And if you've never looked into Satanism or you never realized what it actually was, here it is. It is not. It's completely atheist. The only rituals going on is sex magic. And hey, who would argue against that? So. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of Sovryn Tech. I got great response, people enjoying the 1 hour format. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. And of course, if you want more Sovryn Tech, where we even talk about things like this, you can go to Patreon, become a Sovryn Tech patron. Go to sovryntech.com to get your hookup. And hey, I will see all of you on the other side. Got a dynamite episode next week. You just wait till you hear it. See you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.